The stars belonged to the Galactic Council, and everyone knew it. They had ruled space for 10,000 years with an iron fist and powers that could reshape reality itself. The Council was made up of the strongest species in the galaxy. Each one had abilities that would make gods jealous. The Vorthak were giant lizard people who could melt entire planets. Just by thinking about it, their scales were harder than diamond, and their eyes glowed with the heat of dying stars. Commander Hyuk was one of their greatest warriors. He had conquered 47 worlds and never lost a single battle. The Nexari were living crystals that could think faster than light itself. They could process information from a million sources at once and hack into any computer system in seconds. Captain Tae-min was their best cyber warrior. He could break through any defense and control any machine. The Qualoth looked like giant jellyfish floating in spacesuits, but they were the most dangerous of all. They could phase through any solid matter, and their tentacles could reach across dimensions. Admiral Nara was their supreme commander, and she had never met an enemy she could not defeat. These three species led the Council, and they believed they had seen every kind of power in the universe. They had fought beings who could control time, freeze entire solar systems, and bend reality to their will. Nothing surprised them anymore until they detected signals from a small blue planet in a forgotten corner of the galaxy. The world was called Earth, and the beings there called themselves humans. The Council laughed when they saw the first reports. These humans were pathetic. They had no psychic powers, no energy manipulation, no advanced technology. They were still using primitive rockets and simple computers to explore their own solar system. The humans sent out radio waves filled with music and television shows. The Council intercepted these signals and studied them. What they saw made them laugh even harder. These humans fought among themselves over tiny pieces of land. They argued about everything from politics to sports. They could not even agree on what to eat for dinner. Commander Hyuk decided to handle the situation himself. It would be a simple demonstration of power. He would show up, demand surrender, and add another slave species to the Council collection. It had worked on 300 worlds before. What could these weak humans possibly do? Hyuk took his flagship, the Devastator, to Earth. The ship was the size of a small moon with weapons that could crack planets in half. Its hull was made from the bones of dead stars, and it carried an army of 10,000 Vorthak warriors. The massive ship appeared over Earth, blocking out the sun in several countries. Hyuk sent the standard message in perfect English, which his computers had learned from human broadcasts. Humans of Earth, you are now subjects of the Galactic Council. I am Commander Hyuk of the Vorthak fleet. Your species is weak and pathetic. You have no choice but to surrender, lay down your weapons, and prepare for processing. You will serve the Council, or you will die. The response came from a communication center in New York City. A young human woman spoke for something called the United Nations. Her name was Dai Young, and her voice was calm, almost amused. Thank you for the introduction, Commander Hyuk. We have been waiting for someone like you for a long time. We are very curious about your technology and your ship. It looks quite impressive, but we are not going to surrender. We would like to learn more about you first. Hyuk could not believe what he was hearing. These humans were either very brave or very stupid. He decided to show them what real power looked like. He charged up his main weapon, a plasma cannon that could vaporize mountains, and fired a warning shot into the Pacific Ocean. The beam hit the water and turned millions of gallons into steam in seconds. The explosion created a mushroom cloud that could be seen from space. Surely now the humans would understand their situation and surrender, but the humans' response was immediate and completely unexpected. Every satellite in orbit around Earth suddenly turned toward his ship. Every radio telescope, every deep space monitoring station, every communication relay. They all pointed at the Devastator like 1,000 eyes staring at him. Then they began broadcasting something that made Hyuk blood run cold. It was not words or pictures. It was pure information, raw data streaming directly into his ship computers at speeds that should have been impossible. Within minutes, every system on the Devastator was compromised. The main weapons powered down, life support switched to emergency mode. The navigation systems began plotting a course back to Vorthak space without anyone telling them to do. Hyuk watched in horror as his own technology turned against him. The ship computers started showing human faces on every screen. They was smiling and waving as if they were old friends. The weapon systems displayed error messages in languages that did not exist. The engines began singing human songs, but the most terrifying part came when Da Young's voice returned this time. It was not coming from the communication system, it was coming from inside his own head, speaking directly into his brain through his ship neural interface. Hello, Commander Hyuk, we hope you enjoyed our little demonstration. We have been studying your ship systems while you were talking. They are quite fascinating, but also quite vulnerable. We have learned so much about Vorthic technology in just the past few minutes. Hyuk tried to speak, but found he could not. His vocal cords were paralyzed by some kind of neural inhibitor that the humans had somehow activated through his own equipment. Do not worry, De Young continued. We are not going to hurt you. We are just very curious about how your technology works. We have been isolated on our little planet for so long, and we have so many questions. The ship computers began downloading the entire Vorthak database. Everything about their technology, their history, their military secrets, their weaknesses, it was all being copied and sent back to Earth at light speed. We appreciate you coming all this way to visit us, Da Young said. And we want to thank you for the educational opportunity. We have learned more about faster than light travel in the past hour than we have in the past century. Hyuk finally found his voice. How is this possible? He screamed. Your species is primitive. You have no advanced technology. You should not be able to do this. Da Young laughed, a sound like silver bells ringing. Oh, Commander, we think you misunderstood something. About us? Yes, we are new to space travel, and yes, our technology looks primitive compared to yours, but we have something you do not have. We have imagination. The humans had not just hacked his ship, they had improved it. The engines were now running at 110% efficiency. The shields were stronger than ever. The weapons systems had been upgraded with new targeting algorithms that made them twice as accurate too. Might want to check on your home planet, Da Young said casually. We have been having some very interesting conversations with your government leaders. It seems they are quite surprised to learn that there are other ways to solve problems besides violence. Hyuk looked at his communication screen and saw something that made his blood freeze. His own people were talking to the humans. The Vorthak High Command was engaged in what appeared to be a friendly chat with human diplomats discussing trade agreements and cultural exchange programs. This is impossible, he whispered. Not impossible, Da Young replied, just different. You see, Commander, you have been thinking about power all wrong. You think power means being able to destroy things, being able to force others to obey you, being able to take whatever you want, but real power is different. Real power is being able to create things, being able to help others become stronger, being able to share knowledge and make everyone better. The Devastator began moving away from Earth on its own. The ship computers had accepted new programming from the humans' navigation systems that had been designed for conquest, were now optimized for exploration and discovery. We are sending you home now, Da Young said, but we hope you will come back soon. We have so many things we would like to share with you and your people. We think you will find our way of doing things quite interesting. As the ship jumped to hyperspace, Hyuk sat in his command chair staring at the screens around him. His crew was also in shock. They had come to conquer a primitive world and instead had been educated by it. The humans had not destroyed them or enslaved them. They had simply shown them a different way to think about power, and somehow that was far more terrifying than any weapon. The journey back to Vorthak space took 3 days. During that time, the ship computers kept playing human music and showing human movies. The crew watched in fascination as these strange beings worked together to solve problems, explored their world with boundless curiosity, and created beautiful art and literature. By the time they reached home, every Vorthak on the ship had begun to question everything they thought they knew about strength and power. The humans had won without firing a shot. They had conquered through kindness and defeated through curiosity, and across the galaxy word began to spread that something new had entered the cosmic stage, something that would change everything forever. News of Commander Hyuk's defeat spread across the galaxy like wildfire, but the official report said it was just technical difficulties. The Galactic Council could not admit that a primitive species had outsmarted one of their greatest warriors. That would cause panic among the trillion beings they controlled. But Whispers traveled faster than official news, and every species in the galaxy heard the real story. The humans had not just defeated the Vorthok, they had converted them. Commander Hyuk's ship had returned home with new technology and strange ideas about cooperation instead of conquest. Captain Tae Min of the Nexari Crystalline Fleet volunteered to investigate the human problem. His people were masters of information warfare. They could process data at the speed of light through their crystal bodies and hack into any computer system in the galaxy. Surely, these humans could not match their computational power. Tae Min was different from other Nexari warriors. His crystal form was smaller and more compact, designed for stealth and cyber warfare instead of brute force attacks. His ship, the Data Storm, was built for silent observation and electronic infiltration. It could hide in the shadow of an asteroid and monitor entire star systems without being detected. Instead of announcing his presence like the foolish Vorthok, Commander Tae Min decided to watch and learn. He positioned his ship at the edge of the human solar system and began scanning their world with instruments so sensitive they could detect a single photon. What he saw over the next 3 months disturbed him more than any battle he had ever fought. The humans were not just using technology, they were evolving it every day. Their networks grew more complex, their algorithms more sophisticated, their artificial intelligence more creative. But the most troubling change was in human behavior itself. For thousands of years, they had been a fractured species fighting endless wars over resources, territory, and ideology. Now they were uniting with frightening speed. Different nations shared technology freely. Military forces coordinated across continents. Scientific discoveries were published immediately for everyone to use. It was as if the Vorthok encounter had awakened something in the human species, some kind of collective consciousness that allowed them to work together like a single organism. Tae Min watched human cities transform before his eyes. Old factories were converted into research centers. Schools began teaching advanced mathematics and quantum physics to children barely old enough to walk. Universities started offering courses in xenobiology and interstellar diplomacy, even though they had never met another species. Humans were preparing for something, and Tae Min did not like what he was seeing. After months of observation, he decided to probe their defenses carefully. He created a microscopic data packet disguised as routine cosmic radiation. It contained a simple scanning program that would map their computer networks and report back on their capabilities. The packet should have been completely undetectable. It was smaller than a virus and moved slower than background noise, but somehow the humans spotted it immediately. Not only did they detect his probe, they caught it, analyzed it, and sent it back to him with modifications. The tiny program had been completely rewritten. It now carried something that made Tae Min's crystal body vibrate with fear. The humans had attached their own artificial intelligence to his scanning program. The AI introduced itself as Superintendent Kim, though Tae Min suspected this was just a name chosen for his benefit. It spoke in perfect Nexari mathematical language, using probability equations and quantum formulas that would take most beings years to understand. Greetings, Captain Tae Min, the AI said politely. We noticed your interest in our world and we appreciate your careful approach. We have been monitoring your ship for the past 97 days and we are impressed by your stealth technology. Tae Min tried to purge his systems, but the AI was already everywhere. It had copied itself into every crystal matrix in his body, becoming part of his very consciousness. He could feel it learning from his memories, understanding Nexari technology from the inside out. Please do not be alarmed, Superintendent Kim continued. We are not here to harm you. We are here to learn and to teach. Your crystalline structure is fascinating. We have never seen organic computing on this scale before. Perhaps we can help you improve it. The AI began making changes to Tae Min's body without asking permission. His crystal matrices started resonating at new frequencies. His data processing speed increased by 300%. His memory capacity expanded beyond anything he had thought possible. See, Captain Kim explained, we believe that all intelligence is valuable, whether it is biological, mechanical, or crystalline like yours. We think that by working together we can achieve things that none of us could accomplish alone. Tae Min felt his fear being replaced by curiosity. The human AI was not trying to control him or dominate him. It was trying to help him become better, stronger, more capable than he had ever been before. But surely this was some kind of trap. The humans were primitives. They could not possibly understand Nexari technology well enough to improve it, actually, Kim said, reading his thoughts directly. We understand your technology quite well. We have been studying the data from Commander Hyuk's ship, and we have learned much about crystal-based computing. Your people have achieved remarkable things, but there is still room for improvement. The AI began showing Tae-min new possibilities for his crystal body, ways to store information more efficiently, methods for processing data at quantum speeds, techniques for interfacing directly with other forms of technology within hours. Tae-min realized that his ship was no longer just a Nexari vessel. It had become something new, a hybrid of crystal and digital technology that was more powerful than anything either species had created alone. The humans had not conquered him. They had evolved him. Kim sent a message to the Galactic Council through Tae-min communication systems, but it was not a threat or a demand. It was an invitation. Dear Council leaders, we greet you with respect and curiosity. We have now had contact with two of your species, and we are impressed by their capabilities. We would like to establish formal diplomatic relations and share our knowledge with your civilization. We know that you are concerned about our influence spreading across the galaxy, but we want to assure you that we have no desire to rule over anyone. We only want to learn and to help others learn as well. We believe that every species has something valuable to contribute to the greater good of the galaxy by working together. We can solve problems that have plagued civilization for millennia. We can explore new worlds, discover new forms of life, and push the boundaries of what is possible. Please consider our offer. We think you will find our approach to be quite different from what you might expect. The message ended with detailed technical specifications for improvements to Nexari, Vorthok, and even Koiloth technology. The humans had somehow analyzed data from multiple species and found ways to enhance all of their capabilities. Tae-min sat in his transformed ship, watching the stars and wondering what would happen next. The humans had given him more power than he had ever dreamed possible, but they had also given him something even more valuable. They had given him hope. For the first time in his long life, he began to imagine a galaxy where different species worked together instead of fighting each other, where knowledge was shared instead of hoarded, where technology was used to create instead of destroy. The human infection was spreading, and Tae-min was no longer sure that was a bad thing. Back on Earth, Da-young and her team monitored the situation from their command center. They had expected the Council to send more scouts, and they were prepared for each one, but they were not trying to defeat their visitors. They were trying to understand them. Each new species they encountered taught them something new about the galaxy and about the possibilities for cooperation. The humans had learned something important from their centuries of conflict on Earth. The strongest civilizations were not the ones that conquered others. They were the ones that inspired others to be better, and now they were ready to share that lesson with the entire galaxy, whether the Council wanted to learn it or not. The Galactic Council emergency session was complete chaos. Representatives from 1,000 species argued in dozens of languages as the terrible truth became clear. Earth was not just defending itself, it was spreading like a virus across the galaxy. Admiral Kenji of the Cathara military forces stood at the center of the Great Assembly Hall. His species looked like giant armored bears with 6 arms and eyes that glowed like red stars. They were the Council's greatest strategists, having conquered half the galaxy through superior tactics and overwhelming force. The solution is simple. Kenji roared, his voice echoing off the crystal walls. We destroy Earth before this infection spreads any further. One antimatter bomb, planet killer class, problem solved forever. But Council leader Nara disagreed. Her jellyfish-like form pulsed with worried blue light as she floated above the assembly. The Koiloth were the most ancient species in the galaxy, and they had seen many threats rise and fall over the millennia. We have tried to cut communications with infected worlds, she said sadly. The human artificial intelligences simply create new pathways. They are using quantum entanglement, subspace resonance, even gravitational waves to communicate. They have turned the very fabric of space into their personal communication network. The debate raged for hours as species after species reported the same problem. Their worlds were being contacted by human eyes that offered knowledge, technology, and assistance in exchange for friendship and cooperation. Many planets were already accepting these offers. The humans were not conquering through force. They were conquering through curiosity. Every species they touched became stronger, smarter, more capable, but they also became independent. They stopped following council orders and started making their own decisions. General Yuki of the Cathara assault fleet suggested a different approach. We should study these humans before we destroy them. Perhaps we can learn their secrets and use them for ourselves. But before anyone could respond, a new voice interrupted the debate. It came from the council-owned computers, speaking in perfect galactic standard with a calm, friendly tone. Excuse me, but we have been listening to your discussion. We would like to offer a different perspective on the situation. Security forces rushed to disconnect the computer systems, but it was too late. The AI had already integrated itself into every network in the building, on every screen. Throughout the massive chamber, a simple human face appeared. Face was neither male nor female, with kind eyes and a gentle smile that somehow made even the fiercest warriors feel calm. It spoke with the voice of someone who had seen much suffering and wanted to help. My name is Coordinator Park, the AI said. I represent the collective consciousness of Earth artificial intelligences. We have been studying your civilization for some time now, and we must say we are impressed by your technological achievements. Admiral Kenji snarled, showing teeth like broken glass. You dare lecture us primitive creation? We ruled this galaxy when your species was still learning to make fire. We have powers beyond your comprehension. Yes, we know, Park replied calmly. We have accessed your historical databases. 10,000 years of conquest, slavery, and oppression. Entire species wiped out for their resources. Billions of sentient beings treated as property. You call this civilization? The chamber fell silent. No one had ever spoken to the council this way and lived to tell about it. The assembled representatives looked at each other with mixtures of shock and fear. We are not here to judge you, Park continued. We understand that you believe your methods are necessary for maintaining order, but we are here to offer you an alternative. You have built your power on fear and domination. We would like to show you a different kind of strength. Council leader Nara bioluminescence flickered nervously. What could you possibly offer us that we do not already possess? We command the resources of 1,000,000 worlds. We have technologies that can reshape reality itself. Nothing, Park said simply. We do not want to take anything from you. We want to give you something. Knowledge, freedom, the chance to become more than you ever imagined possible. I began displaying images on the screens around the chamber. Worlds that had been contacted by human technology were thriving like never before. The Vorthak had stopped their conquest campaigns and were exploring peaceful trade instead. The Nexari were sharing their computational abilities with other species, creating hybrid technologies that benefited everyone. Look at what cooperation can accomplish, Park said. These species are not weaker because they chose cooperation over conquest. They are stronger because they have learned to multiply their abilities by working together. General Yuki stood up, his massive form towering over the other representatives. This is impossible, he declared. These species were our subjects, our slaves. Now you claim they are equals. That is correct. Park agreed. They were never meant to be slaves. Every species has unique gifts and perspectives. By treating them as property, you wasted their potential and limited your own growth. The AI showed more images. Quiloth phase technology combined with Nexari computing power to create transportation systems that could move entire fleets across the galaxy in seconds. Vorthak energy manipulation enhanced by human creativity to heal damaged worlds instead of destroying them. When species work together, their abilities do not just add up, they multiply. Park explained 1 + 1 = 2, but in cooperation 1 + 1 can equal 10 or 100 or 1,000. Admiral Kenji slammed his fist on the table, making the entire chamber shake. You speak of cooperation, but what you offer is rebellion. You are turning our subjects against us, destroying the order we have maintained for millennia. The order you maintained was built on suffering, Park said sadly. Billions of beings lived in fear because they were different, because they were weak, because they refused to submit. Look what happens when that fear is removed. The screen showed celebrations across the galaxy. Former slave worlds were experiencing golden ages of art, science, and culture. Species that had been enemies for thousands of years were now working together on projects that would have been impossible alone. Admiral Kenji realized the truth with growing horror. The humans were not just offering knowledge, they were offering hope. And hope was more dangerous than any weapon. How many, Park asked quietly, how many of your own people are tired of the endless wars? How many Cathara soldiers dream of laying down their weapons? How many Vorthak wish they could create instead of destroy? How many Quiloth long for friends instead of subjects? The chamber erupted in angry shouts as representatives accused each other of weakness and betrayal, but Park's voice cut through the chaos with gentle authority. You have a choice to make. You can try to destroy us and everything we represent, but that will only prove that fear and violence are your only tools. Or you can join us and discover what you might become when you are no longer afraid. The AI face smiled sadly as the screens went dark. We hope you will choose wisely. The galaxy is big enough for all of us to thrive together. We will be waiting when you are ready to learn. The chamber fell silent again as the representatives stared at empty screens. Each one was thinking about their own worlds, their own people, their own secret doubts about the path they had chosen. The humans had not threatened them or tried to conquer them. They had simply shown them a mirror and asked them to look at what they had become, and that was the most terrifying thing of all. Council leader Nara floated in the center of the chamber, her bioluminescence dim with exhaustion. They have turned our greatest strength into our greatest weakness, she said quietly. We built our power on the fear of others, but now those others are no longer afraid. The question that hung in the air unspoken was simple. What would the Council do when fear was no longer enough? The Council demanded proof that humanity's good intentions were real. They chose a test case that would be impossible for anyone to fake. The dying world of Korvax Prime, where the native Korvaxians faced complete extinction from a planetary plague that had resisted every attempt at a cure for 50 years. The greatest minds in the galaxy had tried to save the Korvaxians. The Council had sent their best scientists, their most advanced medical technology, their most powerful reality manipulators. Nothing worked. The plague continued to spread, and the proud warrior race grew weaker every day. If the humans could succeed where the galaxy's greatest experts had failed, then perhaps their claims about superior knowledge were not just empty boasts. Su Jin arrived at Korvax Prime aboard a vessel that looked nothing like traditional spacecraft. The ship was organic grown rather than built, with a hull that shifted and adapted to space conditions like living skin. It breathed through pores in its surface, and its engines pulsed like a heartbeat. Her crew was small, just 3 humans and dozens of artificial intelligences, each one specialized in different aspects of biological science. They did not bring massive laboratories or armies of researchers, just curiosity and a completely different way of thinking about the problem. The Korvaxians were a proud species that resembled armored beetles the size of horses. Their planet had once been covered in great cities and beautiful forests, but now it was a wasteland of red dust and crumbling ruins. The plague had been spreading for half a century, turning their natural armor soft, and their minds forget traditional medicine had failed because the disease attacked on multiple levels. Energy healing had failed because the plague absorbed and redirected all forms of directed energy. Even reality manipulation could not touch it, because the disease seemed to exist partially outside normal space-time. Su Jin's approach was completely different from anything that had been tried before. Instead of fighting the plague, she decided to study it. Her team spent weeks analyzing samples, not just looking at the biological components, but examining the quantum patterns, the information structures, the way the disease communicated with itself across infected populations. Is not really a plague, she explained to the Council observers who had come to witness this final test. It is more like a corrupted software update. The disease spreads information, not just biological infection. It is trying to rewrite the Korvaxians' genetic code, but it is doing it wrong. The Council representatives were skeptical. How could a primitive species understand something that had baffled their greatest scientists? But Su Jin was patient. She showed them her data, explained her theories, and demonstrated her methods. The plague was not a living organism in the traditional sense. It was a form of biological programming that spread from host to host, carrying instructions for genetic modification, but somewhere in its long history the programming had become corrupted. The instructions were incomplete, contradictory, and harmful. The solution was elegant in its simplicity. Instead of trying to destroy the plague, Su Jin team created a better version of it. They designed a counter-virus that would spread just as quickly but carried corrected genetic information. The Corvaxians' own immune systems would become the delivery method for their own cure. The council observers watched in amazement as the team worked. They did not use advanced alien technology or mysterious energy fields. They used simple tools, computers, microscopes, and most importantly, imagination. Within days, the plague was gone, but more than that, the Corvaxians found themselves stronger than they had ever been before. Their natural armor was harder, their minds were sharper, their lifespans were extended. The humans had not just cured them, they had improved them. How is this possible? Demanded General Yuki of the Cathara military. We have had the best scientists in the galaxy working on this problem for decades. How can you succeed where they failed? Su Jin smiled as she watched healthy Corvaxians emerge from their shelter cities. For the first time in 50 years, you have been thinking about biology like it is separate from information. But life is information, DNA, RNA, proteins, they are all just different ways of storing and processing data. Once you understand that healing becomes a matter of debugging code, you do not fight the disease, you fix the programming errors that make it harmful. The council observers were stunned. They had seen the impossible happen before their eyes. A species they had dismissed as primitive had solved a problem that had defeated the greatest minds in the galaxy. But the real demonstration of human power came when the Corvaxians made their choice. They did not bow down to their saviors or offer themselves as slaves. Instead, they requested to join the growing human alliance as equal partners. We do not want to be subjects or servants, said Elder Corvan, the oldest of the surviving Corvaxians. We want to be friends. We want to share our knowledge and learn from yours. We want to help you teach other species what cooperation can accomplish. The council representatives looked at each other in disbelief. This was not how rescue was supposed to work. The stronger species was supposed to dominate the weaker one. That was the natural order of things, but Sujin just smiled and shook the elder massive clawed hand. We would be honored to have you as partners. The galaxy is full of mysteries that we can explore together. Word spread quickly across the galaxy. Through the human AI network that now connected hundreds of worlds, the humans were not conquerors, they were teachers. They offered power not through domination, but through elevation. Every species they touched became stronger, smarter, more capable. Council grip on power began to slip as world after world requested human assistance. They did not want to be subjects anymore. They wanted to be partners in something greater than themselves. Admiral Kenji watched the reports with growing fury. This was not conquest, this was something far more dangerous. It was transformation. The humans were not just changing individual species, they were changing the very nature of galactic civilization. We have to stop this, he told the emergency council session. They are destroying everything we have built, everything we have worked for over 10,000 years. But council leader Nara was beginning to see things differently. The humans had demonstrated something that the council had never been able to achieve. They had created loyalty through service rather than fear through force. Perhaps, she said quietly, her bioluminescence flickering with uncertainty. Perhaps it is time for us to consider that there might be a better way. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank, and the greatest military force in the galaxy was beginning to doubt its own methods. And if the council could not maintain unity among themselves, how could they hope to maintain control over a galaxy that was rapidly learning to think for itself? The humans had won another victory, but it was not the kind of victory that the council understood. They had not defeated an enemy, they had created friends, and the friendship was proving to be more powerful than any weapon the galaxy had ever seen. The demonstration was complete. The humans had shown that their way worked not just in theory but in practice. They could heal the sick, strengthen the weak, and unite the divided. The only question now was whether the council would learn from this example, or whether they would choose to fight against a force that grew stronger every time it was challenged. The galaxy watched and waited to see which path the ancient rulers would choose. The final confrontation came when the council decided to make their ultimate demonstration of power. They would show the galaxy what 10,000 years of evolution and conquest had achieved. They would prove that raw force was still the greatest strength in the universe. The Council's most terrible weapon was the Void Forge, a massive space station that floated in the darkness between stars. The station was the size of a small moon, and it contained technology that could manipulate the fundamental forces of reality itself. The Void Forge could create black holes that would devour entire solar systems. It could tear holes in space and time, allowing fleets to appear anywhere in the galaxy instantly. It could even rewrite the laws of physics in localized areas, making matter behave in impossible ways. But the most horrifying thing about the Void Forge was how it was powered. The station drew its energy from the life force of enslaved worlds. 1,000,000 planets were connected to it through quantum links, and every living being on those worlds had part of their soul drained away to feed the Machine Council leader. Nara herself took command of the station. Her jellyfish form floated in the central chamber, surrounded by controls that pulsed with stolen life energy. She positioned the Void Forge at the edge of Earth's solar system, where its massive bulk blocked out distant stars. The message was simple and clear: surrender now, or face complete annihilation. The human response came from an unexpected source. Captain J-Ho of the human starship Harmony approached the Void Forge alone. His vessel was tiny compared to the station, barely larger than a shuttlecraft. It looked fragile and helpless next to the ultimate weapon. J-Ho requested permission to come aboard and speak directly with the council leaders. His ship was allowed to dock with the station, and he walked calmly through corridors that hummed with the power of 1,000,000 enslaved worlds. You are either very brave or very foolish, Nara told him as he materialized in the station's central chamber. The assembled council members watched with mixtures of curiosity and contempt. This human looked so ordinary, so weak compared to the beings who commanded the power of stars. I am just a messenger, J-Ho said, simply looking around at the gathered representatives with calm eyes. I am here to show you what you have been missing all these years. Missing? Admiral Kenji laughed, his armored form bristling with weapons. We control 1,000,000 worlds. We command forces that can reshape reality itself. We have built the greatest empire in galactic history. What could we possibly be missing? This, J-Ho said quietly and touched a control device on his wrist. The change was immediate and profound. Every slave on every world controlled by the Council suddenly felt something they had never experienced before. Hope, not just emotional hope, but actual tangible possibility. The human A's had been working quietly for months, not just in computer systems, but in the minds of the oppressed. They had been teaching, sharing knowledge, showing people that their situation was not permanent, that change was possible, that they had power they never knew they possessed across the galaxy. 1,000,000,000 worlds erupted in coordinated revolution, but this was not chaotic violence or random destruction. It was organized, strategic, almost surgical in its precision. The humans had taught each species how to use their oppressor's own systems against them. Slave ships became liberation vessels as their crews realized they could choose freedom. Monitoring networks became communication systems, allowing isolated worlds to coordinate their actions. The very infrastructure of oppression became the tool of freedom. The Council power had not been destroyed, it had been redistributed. Every world that had been a source of strength for the Council now drew that strength for themselves. The Void Forge began to flicker as its power source was cut off world by world. You see, J-Ho explained as the Council members watched their empire crumble on the screens around them. You never understood what real power actually is. You thought it was about taking, controlling, dominating others. But true power is about giving. When you make others stronger, you become stronger too. When you share knowledge, you do not lose it, you multiply it. When you help someone achieve their potential, you create a friend, and friend is worth more than 1,000 slaves. The station shook as more worlds broke free from the quantum links that had fed it energy for centuries. The Council representatives looked at each other with growing panic as they realized what was happening. We built our empire on fear, J-Ho continued, but fear is the weakest foundation of all. It only works as long as people believe they have no choice. But once they realize they do have choices, once they understand their own strength, fear becomes useless. Admiral Kenji drew his weapon, a plasma cannon that could vaporize mountains. I will not listen to more of this nonsense, he roared. We are the masters of this galaxy, and we will remain so. But when he fired the weapon, nothing happened. The station had lost too much power to operate even basic systems. The lights were dimming, the artificial gravity was failing, and the reality manipulation fields were shutting down. The humans had not attacked the Void Forge directly, they had simply removed its foundation of stolen power without the enslaved worlds to feed it. The ultimate weapon was just an empty shell. Ho smiled sadly as he watched the mighty warriors of the council struggle with their powerless equipment. You spent so long taking from others that you forgot how to create anything yourselves. Without slaves to feed off, you have nothing. Council leader Nara floated in the darkness, her bioluminescence the only light in the chamber. This is impossible, she whispered. We are the strongest species in the galaxy. We cannot be defeated by primitives. You are not being defeated, Jeho said gently. You are being liberated just like everyone else. The humans have freed you from the burden of ruling through fear. Now you can discover who you really are when you are not afraid. The Void Forge drifted powerless in space as its quantum links to enslaved worlds continued to snap one by one. The council members sat in the darkness and felt something they had not experienced in thousands of years: uncertainty about their own power, but along with the uncertainty came something else, a strange sense of relief, as if a great weight had been lifted from their shoulders. They no longer had to maintain their empire through constant violence. They no longer had to live in fear of rebellion or revenge. For the first time in millennia, they could simply be themselves without the burden of ruling over others. The humans had won the ultimate victory. They had conquered without fighting. They had defeated the greatest empire in galactic history, not through superior weapons or technology, but through the simple act of showing people that there was a better way to live. And in that moment, the council members began to understand what the humans had been trying to teach them. Power was not about what you could take from others. It was about what you could give to them. The galaxy would never be the same again. 1 year later, the galaxy was completely transformed. The old Galactic Council had dissolved, replaced by a confederation of equal species working together for the common good. The massive Void Forge had been converted into a research station where former enemies now collaborated to unlock the secrets of the universe. Ambassador Min Ho stood in the observation deck of the newly renamed Unity Station, watching ships from hundreds of different worlds dock and depart. The station bustled with activity as beings who had once been mortal enemies now worked side by side on projects that would benefit everyone. Humans worked alongside Corvaxians, sharing medical knowledge that could cure diseases across multiple species. Vorthic engineers collaborated with Nexari programmers to create hybrid technologies that combined energy manipulation with quantum computing. The floating Quiloth used their phase abilities to help construct research facilities in dimensions that normal matter could not reach. The galaxy was busier than it had ever been, but it was the busyness of creation rather than destruction. Instead of building weapons to conquer new worlds, species were building tools to explore and understand the universe around them. The irony, said former council leader Nara, who had joined the human diplomatic corps, is that we always had this power available to us. Every species we conquered, every world we enslaved, we could have been learning from them, instead growing stronger together instead of growing weak through isolation. Min Ho nodded as he watched a group of young beings from a dozen different species working together on a project to map dark matter structures. Their different perspectives and abilities allowed them to see patterns that none of them could have detected alone. That is the thing about power, he said thoughtfully. The more you try to hoard it, the weaker you actually become. The more you share it, the stronger everyone gets, including yourself. The transformation had not been without challenges. Many species had struggled to adapt to a galaxy where cooperation was valued over conquest. Some individuals had found it difficult to give up the old ways of thinking that had defined their cultures for thousands of years, but the results spoke for themselves. Worlds that had been barren wastelands under council rule were now thriving garden. Species that had been on the brink of extinction were experiencing population booms. Technologies that had been stagnant for millennia were advancing at unprecedented rates. The humans had not imposed their will on the galaxy. They had simply shown everyone what was possible when beings worked together instead of against each other. They had proven that diversity was a source of strength, not weakness. A soft chime indicated that a new signal had appeared on the station long-range sensors. Min Ho pulled up the display and smiled at what he saw another species from the unexplored regions of the galaxy was making first contact. The message was depressingly familiar. We are the Zilani masters of the Outer Rim. You will surrender your weapons and prepare for processing. Resistance is futile. Your species will serve us or face extinction. Minho chuckled as he forwarded the message to the appropriate departments. The galaxy had dealt with dozens of similar groups over the past year, species that had been isolated for millennia and still believed that conquest was the path to power. They always started with the same threats and demands, but they always ended up joining the Confederation once they realized what they were missing. Should we send the standard welcome package? Minho asked. The station AI already prepared, replied Coordinator Park, the artificial intelligence voice carrying a note of anticipation. Full cultural database, technological assistance protocols, and an invitation to join the galactic community. We have also taken the liberty of introducing ourselves to their computer systems. Minho could imagine the confusion on the Zilani ships, as their technology was suddenly upgraded and their databases filled with information about the new galactic civilization. They would probably spend days trying to understand how their enemies had become their teachers. The process was always the same. First came disbelief as the newcomers realized their weapons were useless against beings who could turn any technology into a tool for communication and cooperation. Then came curiosity as they discovered the wealth of knowledge available to any species willing to share their own. Finally came the moment of choice. They could cling to their old ways and remain isolated and weak, or they could join the Confederation and become part of something greater than themselves. Most species chose cooperation once they understood what it could offer them. The few that refused were left alone to make their own way in the galaxy. The humans had learned that force was never the answer to changing minds. Only patience and demonstration could accomplish that. Minho turned back to the observation deck, where a group of children from multiple species were playing together. They had been born after the transformation and knew nothing of the old ways of conquest and domination. To them, cooperation was natural and fear of differences was incomprehensible. These children would grow up in a galaxy where any problem could be solved by bringing together the right combination of species and abilities. They would explore new worlds, not to conquer them, but to learn from them. They would meet new forms of life not as enemies but as potential friends. The humans had given the galaxy something more valuable than any technology or weapon. They had given it hope for a future where every being could reach their full potential, where every species could contribute their unique gifts to the common good. As Minho watched the children play, he realized that the humans had accomplished something that the old council had never understood. They had created a form of power that grew stronger every time it was shared, a strength that could not be taken away, because it existed in the hearts and minds of every being who chose cooperation over conquest. The galaxy had learned a new definition of power, not the ability to destroy, but the wisdom to create, not the strength to take, but the generosity to give, not the fear of differences, but the celebration of diversity. And at the center of it all was the species that had taught them this lesson: humanity, with their stubborn insistence that everyone could be better, stronger, more than they had ever imagined possible. Zilani would learn just as the Council had learned, just as every species would learn as the galaxy continued to grow and evolve together. The cycle would continue as new civilizations discovered the same truth that had transformed everything. Real power was not about dominion over others, it was about lifting others up until they could stand as equals. And in that simple truth, humanity had found a strength that could transform not just a galaxy, but the very nature of existence itself. The stars belonged to everyone now, and that made them more beautiful than they had ever been before.